Hmm. Happy Friday. So it is. Another day in the life. So today I just literally asked God to send me something. I ain't have nothing prepared for you. Nothing at all. So I'm going to let Jesus be the one to completely guide this. And so I opened to Luke 24. It's actually the resurrection. Very early on Sunday morning, the women went to the tomb carrying the spices they had prepared. And earlier in this text, it says the women who followed Jesus from Galilee went with Joseph and saw the tomb and how Jesus' body was placed in it. They went back to their home and prepared the spices and perfumes for the body. On the Sabbath, they rested as the law commanded. So on Friday, they go after he was crucified and see him there, and they decide they're going to go home and make some. Hey, let's make some spices and come back, and So to them, Jesus is dead. He's dead, and as tragic as that may be, they decide that what they're going to do is go home and get some spices, and because they didn't have. Look, man, that whole embalming process didn't happen back then. Maybe back then, but I don't want to put a time limit on it. I just mean that the Jewish tradition, they didn't have embalming. So they just, even when Jesus went to Lazarus' tomb, for instance, he was like, roll back the stone. And they were like, bruh, finna be stank up in there, because the decomposition would happen. And so the spices and perfumes were for them to have. And so they came back. They found the stone rolled away from the entrance to the tomb, so they went in, but they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. They stood there puzzled about this when suddenly two men in bright, shining clothes stood by them, which we can assume are angels, right? Why are you looking among the dead for one who is alive? Here, he is not here, he has been raised. Remember what he said to you while you were in Galilee? The Son of Man must be handed over to sinners, be crucified, and 3 days later rise to life. The Son of Man must be handed over to sinners, be crucified, and 3 days later raised to life. This must happen. There's no other way, right? No other way. He is not here. He has been raised. He is not here. He ain't here. This ain't his house. This ain't where. Then the women remembered his words, returned from the tomb, and told all these things to the 11 disciples and all the rest of the people there that were there. The 11, because they haven't chosen Judas's replacement yet. So Judas is out hanging himself somewhere. I don't know. I'd be getting tore up. If I was the guy hey, that's the guy right there. And it turned, he was Jesus. Oh, snap. Bruh, you couldn't, man, it had to be tough. I mean, we always look at Judas as like this terrible, evil human being. But God knows we've all been there. And then on this crazy note, right? Like on this, follow me, all right? On this really crazy note, had he not turned Jesus over, Jesus wouldn't be crucified, and therefore we wouldn't all be forgiven. So thanks, Judas. Thank you for being a douchebag. I mean, I know that he gonna have it rough because you the one that did the deed, bro. You did it. You know what I mean? So what a catch-22. You have to be that guy, and you gotta wonder, like, does he go straight to hell? Does God get him and be like, hey man, but thanks. You know, that's a tough call right there. That is tough business. That is tough business. I mean, how does that work out? Without Judas, we can't have the crucifixion. I mean, allegedly, I mean, it's God. He's going to work it out regardless. But poor Judas, man. Man. They'd had to find me at the bottom of a bottle. You know what I mean? I turned in Christ. I turned Christ in. Boy. Man, it's like telling them your best friend to the police or something. You know what I mean? You done turn your boy in. Hey, you over there doing that. That's tough, man. That's a hard road to carry, man. And that's a shame, you know. We don't think about that a lot. But it had not been for these guys, had it not been for the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and if they hadn't have been acting like assholes in the first place, well, Jesus wouldn't have had to come. So thank you, guys, for being jerks and whatnot. You know what I mean? There's that, you know. Thank you for... It's one of those things, you know. I think that's why it's turn the other cheek, because you don't know why somebody's doing something, you know. Like I talked about yesterday, something might be going on in that guy's life, man. I wouldn't want to be Judas. I would not want to be him. Not at all. So they go back and they tell everybody, hey, man, hey, y'all ain't gonna believe this. I mean, could you imagine busting in the little hut, the little clay houses, you know, you come busting in. Yo, Jesus ain't there. You know how Jesus was talking about he was gonna rise again, and we was like, "Oh, Jesus, you full of it," and he ain't there. He's not there. He is not there. I was just there, not there. And so even the apostles thought that what these women said was nonsense, and they did not believe them. I mean, right? These women, nonsense. Here they go with their chitter chatter. I mean, even the poor women can't catch a break. Even the Bible, they're like, women. You know? I mean, you guys ate the apple or the pomegranate, depending upon how that works out. But either way, you ate some fruit and gave it to us, and it was all your damn fault in the first place. But it makes it tough, man. I feel so... Poor women, poor us, poor human beings. We have a rough time of it. So they go back to the apostles, who Jesus had told several times that I'm going to raise from the dead. Did not one of them be like, well, of course he ain't there. He said he was going to rise again. Of course he's not there. Why would he be there? He said he was going to rise again. Of course he rose again, you know. So there was one. Peter was like, well, let me go look. Peter's at least, let me go look. So he goes back. He runs over to the tomb. Bent down, saw the grave closed, but nothing else. Then he went back home, amazed at what had happened. We'll assume that amazed at what had happened was that he knew at least a little bit. Because I'd really like to think, if I was one of the apostles, having watched Jesus literally put his hands on people and healed them. And Peter walks on water for a few steps before his faith fails him. But, I mean, to have experienced and witnessed all this, you think they would have... I mean, I just see that... I see the apostles fail so many times. And I just feel like... Oh, poor Jesus. That was the best you had to pick from? That these 12 guys, that was it? But that's a super judgy thing to say, for one. And it's... It also creates a lot of self-righteousness in myself to think that I would have done better. I mean, we fail all the time. I know I do. I know. God probably speaks to me a lot. Hell, if I had listened to God from day one, when I was like 15 or 16, my life would be a lot different now. A lot different. There would be a lot of things I would have never experienced in my life. So, but in in God's infinite wisdom, he always finds a way to take something negative and make it positive. There's nothing, when you look through the Bible, when you look through all the prophecies and stuff, there's no way he's going to let it, I don't even know what Satan's think. I don't know why you would even try. I don't even, you got to know it's not going to work out. Constantly he will take the worst things and turn them into the best things, and it doesn't make sense until the end, until you look back and go, oh, that makes sense now. So how many times have you had something terrible happen to you? Terrible. It's the worst day of your life. But then you look back years later and go, oh, thank God that happened. Right? You didn't feel that at the time. You didn't feel that. I'm sure Joseph, when he was sold to slavers by his own family, couldn't have, that's why I love that story. It's just like a couple of lines, like, hey, he was sold to, and then he was with them, and then but God saw favor in him, and years later, man, there's a lot that happened between, those first couple of days couldn't have been, you couldn't have been happy about it. Sweet slavers, this is so cool. You ever see that guy on like in movies where something really bad happens and he's like, well, this is so cool. Oh my goodness, you have a rack. This is amazing. I'm gonna get tortured. I have never been tortured before. This will be awesome. I so long to be that guy, just to be where everything that happens is just an upbeat thing, like, ooh, and it just always works out. And I swear, I think that is I think we could all be like that. It would all work out. It would always work out. We'd always at the last minute be saved. I tell you what, I do sometimes. I know that would be awesome. Just to be that guy. Just everything's cool. Like, oh my God, your gun is so shiny. That's amazing. Where did you get it? It's like, you're gonna shoot it. Oh, this is hey, fellas, we're gonna get shot. This is great. Oh, I could just see it now. It'd be fantastic. Then again, my mind, the way it works. Don't mind me. So, these disciples, though, I tell you what, on a regular basis, they continue to just, really? And they're amazed that these things are happening. And so I would like to think that I would have done a much better job at hanging out with this dude while he's doing these amazing things. And when he says, hey, and he looks you in the eyeball and he says, you're going to deny me 3 times, you go, yeah, I probably will. Or if I say, nah, I ain't going to do it, and he says, you're going to deny me 3 times, I'm going to do everything in my power that very next moment that something happened. Hey, aren't you the one with the gallon? Yeah, you damn right, buddy. You damn right. But again, if Peter had not been a coward during that time, he would not have been able to go on to and preach to the Jews and not been able to have his own discipleship happen. And then, so again, you may have had something happen in your life that was really terrible. And that may have been really days ago, because a lot of people are losing their jobs. A lot of people are sitting around just making YouTube videos all day. I don't know anybody like that, but but you may turn around and say, man, it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. So our darkest days can end up being some of our brightest days. And again, some of our brightest days, oh man, I finally got that job I wanted. I finally bought that car I wanted, And then your kid wraps it around a tree pole. The things that we judge as good and bad is not for us to judge. Judge not, lest you be judged first. And I think we need to take that to another level. I think we need to not just me judging other people, right? But me judging good and evil. I have no context to judge what is good and bad in God's favor. In God's infinite wisdom, what is good and bad, I have no idea. What he deems is always going to be good, and sometimes it doesn't always fit in line with my worldview. But then again, my worldview is trash. It's trash. It's It's based on what I've known for 42 years. And God is the Alpha, the Omega, the Almighty, the All-Seeing, the All-Knowing. So what happens in my life may make me stimulate my daughter or son in a certain way that may make him stimulate his daughter or son in a certain way that may generation down the line save the entire world. I don't know, but it may make my life complete crap, and it reminds me of that DMX skit. DMX is pretty much a gangster rapper who, for some reason, decides to throw a lot of Bible into some of his stuff. It's like he's trying to draw in these people who may not want to turn to church, but I like what he's doing there. I love DMX, and I'm not saying go listen to him, but he's got this prayer skit that basically says, Lord, give me pain till I die, but please, Lord, treat him right. So he's talking about his friends and family, hey, I'll take it. Give me that pain and suffering so that my people may see the light. And I mean, I would pray that prayer all the time. And honestly, that prayer is one of the prayers that got me through a lot of deep and dark times when I was younger and going through my trials and tribulations. And when I was living in hotels and selling drugs and I was that guy. You can call me at 4 a.m. I'll meet you in 15 minutes. I got what you need. And did I want to be doing that? Does that hey, I'm going to be president someday, No, of course not. I did what I thought I had to do to get by. And I know a lot of people feel that way. I know a lot of people are growing up and when they talk about gangs and they talk about violence, and some people don't know that there's even an option. I didn't know there was an option. I thought the only way to really have any sort of life was to continue along the path I was on. And there was no other way until one day I actually got robbed, and the kid that robbed me, I told him I had a gun. I showed him the gun. I told him I had a gun. Don't do this. Don't. I probably had some internal intuition going because there was a drought. There wasn't nothing around. There wasn't nothing to get. And, but he robbed me anyways. Yeah, robbed me. So I go back to the place where I was at, this trailer, this damn dope hole, to which they were, all of a sudden crack was readily available. I smoked dope at the time, and they had it ready, loaded up. Hey, smoke this, bro. It's all gonna be okay. And I knew that it was all a big scam, and which I knew before, really, if I'm being honest. But I was hoping beyond hope that I could do that and make that money. And so I got high as all get out. And a buddy of mine came and said, I know where dude's at. And I said, okay. So I swung by a buddy. Well, I'd already picked up the gun from him, but the gun wasn't mine. It was a throwaway gun. It was one that could be used, and it never linked back to me. So went to the motel, the Super 8 on Blanding and 295, as a matter of fact. And me and my boy, I don't name no names, but went up in that hotel room, and I had a choice to make. I had a choice to make right then and there. Dude was up there with two girls, two Jezebel spirits, as they say. And I thought, well, damn, if I got to kill this dude, I'm going to have to kill these two chicks. So there's 3 people I got to kill or beat. Even if I beat this dude, now they done seen me. Am I going to be scary enough, to keep them from ratting me out? And then ain't nobody scary enough to not rat somebody out. Just not. You'd have to do some really foul stuff. And so in that moment, I realized this isn't me. And nah, this ain't what this. It's almost like this hand came down on my shoulder and said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And then my response was, "I don't know." So I smoked a little crack, made a little joke about it. Oh man, hey, you could have just told me, bro. I took what my son might call the bitch route, really, if you're looking at it from an ego perspective. But I don't believe that. So I promised God I would never sell another drug again. I said, I'm done. I'm not going to ever do that again. And I left that hotel room and I went home that night. I'm really not even my home. I had no home. I think I went to my parents' house and just laid on the floor. And that was that. And I got a job working at McDonald's on 17, and I lived in my car. And I spent that Christmas and New Year's in that car, and I said, Lord, I swear I'll never sell another drug again. And I never did. And I slept in that car, and I worked at that McDonald's, and I got my money together to get my licensure because I had been going to school to be a massage therapist. And that was another thing. I mean, the number came on the screen. I said, Lord, well, if it's meant to be, I'll call the number. And if it's your will, we'll do that. And, of course, I got in. But, I mean, I like to think it was God's will. But, I mean, honestly, they'd take anybody in that program. Ended up teaching massage later, and it turned out I was like, oh, that's a bit of a letdown, But all things work to God's favor. That was just an easy one for him. He was like, yeah, I got you, So, and, damned if... I went through that school. I mean, I'd be in the parking lot pushing my little stem and getting my little crack high and going up into class anyways. But I swore I would finish that class, got straight A's. Man, and I was working at McDonald's and living in the parking lot because I'd stopped selling drugs. And I remember it was Christmas. Had to be Christmas. Had to be. It was cold. It was so cold and had 2 blankets in there. And I just finished smoking this huge blunt. I mean, just my car was, you couldn't have seen in it, and I get this on the window. I'm like, oh, man. And as I'm rolling down the window, I mean, smoke's just pluming out. And there's a police officer standing there. And all he says to me is, hey, you warm enough? I said, yeah, I'm all right in here. And he said, no, we're just out driving around. We want you to let you know that we know you're here, and we're going to keep looking out for you. So just know that you're safe. Thank you, sir. He didn't mind the smell of marijuana. He didn't jerk me out the car, throw me on the ground, And some of y'all can talk that racist card. You can do that. But no, I've been there. I've been there. I've been treated like dirt by the police, just like everybody else. And I probably should have been. At the end of the day, I was doing wrong. And they knew it. They just couldn't figure out a way to get me at that time. And so, for this guy to have that shit plume out into his face is, no. Nah. He took that time to say, hey, got you. Sleep easy. It was really, if it wasn't Christmas Eve, I mean, it was light that night, because I remember that blunt being like my Christmas present to myself. And you can't tell me there are not angels walking the earth, just like them 2 men that stood there with Mary Magdalene, Joanna, and said, hey, what you looking for Jesus in here for? He's not here. He's amongst the living. So that's why I always say, listen, man. Listen. God's here. God's listening. Just listen, babe. He's talking to you. He's talking. Listen. It wasn't long after that, the school called me and said, hey, you can take your exam. I passed that exam on my first try. Not even, I was ready. And I never looked back. Never looked back to this day. And I'm so thankful for being in God's pocket, for being part of that mafia, part of the Jesus mafia. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing bigger than that. Nothing bigger than that. So now I'm going to get out here and do what I can for the Lord, make these videos. Hopefully somebody gets something out of it. I know I am. I told you, I'm getting something out of it. I get to read this Bible, put my hands on it, look through, read it. You know, I mean, so much power in here. Should be reading this every day. Every day. Just open it up and read it, you know. Start with that. You know.